One Take. My name is Frank Johnson.
My name is Abraham Lawrence.
And I'm Tim Goetz.
Our goal here is to describe for you the movie that is going on in our head when we read the Bible. Today is Monday, December the 18th, and it's episode number
241.
Yes, and we, for a change, we did not get through the chapter last week, did we, Abe?
No, we did not.
No, but weekend has passed. We are just a week from Christmas. A week from today will be Christmas Day. And we have something really special for you on Christmas Day.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah, we have a special guest that's stopping in the studio. So you guys, he's a surprise guest. So you're just going to have to tune in on Christmas to see who that is.
It's good stuff.
Like Santa's little helper or something, I think. Little. The key word is little.
Yes.
That voice.
Is it one of his little elves?
You think so?
He's not an angry elf.
One of his smart little elves, I'll tell you that.
He's a smart elf.
He is. So anyway, you guys will want to tune in. It's going to be a good time. Any preliminaries before we get into this thing, Abe?
Oh, no. You know, it's just this story has just progressed immensely, and there's just so many turns and twists from the beginning, and everything's just coming into fruition now.
So we're in Genesis chapter 49. This is Israel's prophecy concerning his sons. He blesses some. He reminds them of their past and others. He basically lets them know what's ahead for their different tribes. And so we talked about Reuben and Reuben's sin and Simeon and Levi and their disgrace to the family. And then he comes along with Judah in verse 8 and really gives a great blessing to Judah. Judah is like the patriarch of the family and will lead the family from here out. I believe, didn't you tell me, Abe, that when they traveled in Exodus, when we get into Exodus story, the tribe of Judah is the one that leads? Is that right?
They always go first, whether it's in war or whatever's going on. They are always the first ones up front.
Yeah, there you go. And this is a couple of hundred years later after these blessings. So, you know, these guys, of course, Judah is not alive anymore. And so we talked about Judah and we talked about Zebulun
Yes.
and Issachar, I believe. Or you said we left off.
We left off with Zebulun.
Yeah, so let's pick it up here in the 14th verse, Genesis chapter 49. I'm in the New American Standard. It says, Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between the sheepfolds. When he saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulder to bear burdens and became a slave at forced labor. You know anything about Issachar?
Not really. No information on Issachar.
Well, Issachar's name, this is why we talked about this last week. I said, do you have the meaning of the names? And you're like, no, we covered that already. I know. But some of this actually is pertinent to what we're talking. Issachar's name means man of wages. So that's also goes along with this whole slavery idea, the man of wages. 1 Chronicles 7, 1-5. So that's one of the reasons why I left off. I had some places in here. Oh, here it is. 1 Chronicles. I do have it saved. Good. Look at there. It says Matthew 28. But actually, it's 1 Chronicles 7. It says, now the sons of Issachar were 4, Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimron. The sons of Tola were Uzai, Rephaiah, Jeriel, and Jamani, Ibsam, and Samuel, heads of their fathers' households. The sons of Tola were mighty men of valor in their generations. Their number in the days of David was 22,600. And the sons of Uzai was Izrahiah, and the sons of Izrahiah were Michael, Obadiah, Joel. Almost sounds like books in the Old Testament there. Ishiah. All 5 of them were chief men. With them, by their generations, according to their father's household, were 36,000 troops of the army for war. For they had many wives and sons. Their relatives among all the families of Issachar were mighty men of valor, enrolled by genealogy in all 87,000. So that's, of course, well into the promised land, the settling of the tribe of Issachar, but still follows right along with what Jacob had said Issachar was going to do.
Yep.
Verse 16 is interesting. We come across Dan. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned snake in the path that bites the horse's heels so that his rider falls backward. For your salvation I wait, Oh Lord. Are you sure we did not do Dan last week? For some reason, this sounds very familiar.
No, I don't think we did. But in this version, it says Dan will provide justice for his people, which
That's true. And
Yes.
and you were telling me that there are some famous judges that come out of
Samson.
Dan.
He's out of the tribe of Dan. A lot of people don't know that because they just consider him a Nazarite and they don't think about, what tribe he's from.
And he's definitely a serpent. I mean, he was not a good judge.
Oh, no.
Really, all the way to the end of his life. But once again, we see the grace of God because Samson, I believe anyone would say he's gone to heaven. And yet he did not live a good life at all. Not at all. He was a womanizer. Basically hung out with a prostitute most of his life. And he let women become his demise.
Yes. Yes.
He's like, they just nag and nag.
Yeah. He was very carnal. But, I mean, look at how many people in 2023 call themselves Christians and they live worse than Samson.
Yeah, I know. But they use him for an excuse. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, Samson was no better. Anyway, the cool thing, though, about Dan is the last thing that Jacob says to him. I imagine this was disconcerting to Dan because he said, for your salvation, I wait, O Lord. And this is why I thought we talked about it, because in Revelations chapter 7, verses 4 to 8, you don't have to turn there, and I'm not going to read it all, but it basically lists the 12 tribes that are written on the gates in the New Jerusalem, and Dan is not mentioned. I don't believe that is I believe that's where 112,000 from each tribe is called out for the 144,000, because God says he has this remnant of 144,000 that's going to go into the tribulation and witness for him. 12,000 from each tribe, and so he lists each tribe, and Dan is not one of them. So it's almost like he's not part of that salvation. He's not part of the kingdom.
Yeah, well, when you read in the book of Judges, even from the outset, when God says you're going to go into this land and don't do what these people do, and what do? They go in there and they just wreak havoc. And then all through Judges, people did what they felt like they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. They felt, they did what they thought was right. So,
verse 19 of Genesis 49 says, as for Gad, raiders shall raid him, but he will raid at their heels. And Gad was known to actually settle right near the Jordan. So when people actually invaded the Israeli territory, the Gadites were one of the very first that they would meet. And so they were raided quite a bit, because what they would do is they'd cross the Gordon. They would cross the Jordan, and then they would grab whatever they wanted to grab. They would raid them, basically, and then go back so that you couldn't fight them. But they would always be right there at their heels.
Yes.
You got anything special about Gad?
Sure don't.
Verse 20 says, as for Asher, his food shall be rich, and he will yield royal dainties. Now we know that where Asher settles is just north of Jerusalem, in one of the most fruitful plains in all of Israel. And so the delicacies that come from that plain, that territory, is a great. And they served David, Solomon, many of the kings came from this family of Asher. Great chefs.
Yes.
And of course, Jacob would know, right? He could make a mess of pottage.
That's right.
He made some red stuff.
Yeah.
Tim, were you with us when we did the pottage story with Jacob? I don't think you were.
No.
Anyway, one of the things the NASB it just says stuff, red stuff. I thought, what?
What?
Yeah.
Where's the ingredients list?
What did you say it was? You said it was, or maybe it was Nick. I don't know.
Nick said something crazy.
Nick comes up with the best stuff of what it was called, but so it certainly wasn't oatmeal, but it was something like that.
Something he probably said something like gruel or something like
gruel. Naphtali.
Some porridge.
Yeah. Porridge is what the King James says, yeah. But like I said, in the NASB, it just says some red stuff. Yeah. Whatever that is. Yeah. Verse 21 says, Naphtali is a doe let loose. He gives beautiful words. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but the movie in my head is really kind of wonderful about Naphtali.
Yeah.
I heard that Naphtali yielded some cool judges.
Yeah, he did.
Was Deborah a Naphthalite?
No.
If you even say that, I don't know if that's the way
I don't know. I don't know if that's a correct pronunciation.
You don't think Deborah is?
But what's interesting about Naphtali
Stand the mic.
What's interesting about Naphtali is he's the only one that stayed in Egypt.
Oh. For real?
Yeah,
Where did the others go?
they left.
The sons?
And all of the descendants, they all left, but his people stayed, and he's buried there. Naphtali's buried in Egypt.
Well, I'm assuming they're all buried in Egypt
Not
except
all-
for Joseph.
Nope. Naphtali's the only one buried in Egypt.
So you know they carried all the bones of all of them.
They all went to their own different places. Everyone except for him.
Man, you learn something new every day.
Yep.
All right, see you guys tomorrow. We'll finish this up.